A man goes into the ocean water cold enough to steal your breath in one gulp, and he stays in it for 6 hours, not on purpose, not with a wetsuit, just clinging to life while the sea keeps trying to turn him into silence. I'm Eduardo, this is Impostery. We don't just tell survival stories here, we explain why a body kept going when it really shouldn't have. The first thing he notices is the sound. Not the wind, not the engine. The sound of something heavy shifting under his feet. Like the whole boat just shrugged. It's late night, the sky is black, the horizon disappears. The only steady light is a thin beam from a far away, a lighthouse doing its slow sweep. 5 men are on this small fishing boat. They've done nights like this. The cold feels normal, the air bites, and it's the kind of biting you can work through. Then the deck tilts. Not a little, a hard tilt. Fast enough that your stomach flips before your brain catches up. 1 second, there's a floor. The next second, there's a wall. A crate slides almost. A rope snaps tight. Someone yells a name, sharp and short, like a warning shot. And then the boat rolls. Cold sea water pours in like it has been waiting. It's not a wave splashing, it's the ocean entering, filling space, taking weight, pulling. Men grab for anything that doesn't move. A railing, a line, each other. The boat turns completely. The world becomes upside down. The hole is above them now. A dark belly. The air smells like diesel and salt. The engine coughs once and dies. One of them manages to climb onto the upturned keel, then another. Then another. They're standing on slick metal, hunched and shaking, with sea spray slapping their faces. There's no time to think in paragraphs, only in quick images. Hands, footing, breath, because the water is right there. And the water is wrong. It's the kind of cold that punches through clothes in seconds. The kind that turns your fingers into stiff tools. The kind that makes your chest do a strange thing, like it wants to inhale even when you don't want it to. They can see the island in the distance, not close, a low black shape, a promise and a threat. The central question isn't, can someone swim there? It's, can a human body stay alive long enough to even try? He's young, strong, the kind of strength you get from lifting nets and hauling lines for years. But strength doesn't cancel the physics. The sea doesn't care if you've got willpower. 3 men on the keel try to decide what to do. They can't stay on the boat forever. They can't jump too soon either. Every minute the boat sinks slower. The metal under their boots gets wetter. Their shins get hit by icy water that splashes up, then runs off again. He keeps looking toward that lighthouse beam. It sweeps across the water, then away and back again, like it's counting time for him. Somewhere inside his head, a quiet thought keeps showing up and refusing to leave. If he goes in, the cold will try to shut him down. If he stays, the boat will drag him under. This is one of those moments where the difference between living and dying isn't a heroic decision. It's a decision made with hands shaking in the dark and no good options. And here's the part that matters. Later, doctors will look at what happened and call it an outlier. The kind of cold water survival that doesn't fit their normal charts. They'll argue about fat, training, and the way panic changes breathing. But right now, none of that exists. Right now, it's just a man on a sinking keel, watching a light sweeping the sea, trying to choose the least impossible path. After roughly 45 minutes on the keel, they can't wait anymore. They slide into the water. The cold hits like a slap to the whole body. Not just skin, everything. He forces his arms to move. He picks a direction. He swims towards the island. And almost immediately, the sea starts collecting men. Within the first 10 minutes, the other two swimmers drift away. Not in a dramatic way, in a quiet way. The head lowers, a stroke slows, and then the black water closes over where a person was. He sees it happen. He registers it like a bruise, and then he has to keep going, because stopping to grieve will be the same as choosing to disappear. The lighthouse beam comes back, a white slice across the water. For a second, he can see his two hands in front of him, pale and trembling. Then the light moves on, and he's back into darkness. Just the sound of his own breathing and the slap of water against his face. He has no watch he can trust out here. No timer, no scoreboard, only the rhythm of strokes and the feeling of cold creeping in. If this story is going to make sense, it's going to be because we stay close enough to his body to understand what the cold was doing, minute by minute, while he kept moving anyway. For the most part, this is where the story should end. Not because people are weak, because cold water has rules. In water around 5 degrees Celsius, your skin dumps heat fast. Your hands are usually the first thing to go. Finger joints stiffen, grip disappears, and once you can't use your hands, you can't fix anything. You can't hold the line, and you can't keep your airway safe if waves start hitting your face. The first minute is its own trap. Cold shock makes you gasp. Your breathing rate can jump so hard it feels like you're being chased. If you inhale water in that first minute, it can be over before hypothermia can even start. So the normal assumption is simple. You fall in, you've got minutes to get out, and then your odds collapse. Swimming is supposed to make it worse. Movement scrubs cold water across your body. It strips away any thin, warm layer your skin is trying to keep. And it drains your fuel because every stroke is work. And work burns energy you can't replace out there. That's why a lot of survival advice sounds boring. Float, conserve, wait for rescue. But out here in the dark, with no life raft and no one coming, floating isn't a plan. It's surrender. So he swims. He also isn't alone at the start. 2 other men are somewhere in the darkness, trying to do the same thing. For a few minutes, he can hear splashing and strained breathing. Then one sound stops. Then another. Not with a scream, with absence. That's the moment his brain tries to bargain. Maybe the keel is still there. Maybe he should turn back. But turning back means more time in the water with no progress. So he keeps moving. At first, he tries to swim like he's racing a clock. Fast strokes, hard kicks. Then his lungs burn and his shoulders start cramping. Not a normal cramp, a deep, locking ache that makes your arms feel like they're being twisted. He slows down. Not because he wants to, because his body forces him. And this is where distance becomes cruel. The island doesn't look closer. The lighthouse beam keeps sweeping, then vanishing, then returning. It's the only thing that proves he's not spinning in circles. Time stretches. 30 minutes, then 60. Cold doesn't feel the same the whole way. Early on, it's sharp, like needles. Later, it becomes heavy, like your clothes have turned into soaked blankets made of stone. His hands start to curl, and he has to fight to keep his fingers from clamping shut. He tells himself, keep them open, keep them useful, because he knows without knowing the science that the moment his hands stop obeying is the moment the sea wins. He keeps his breathing under control on purpose. In through the nose when he can, out slow because If he starts hyperventilating, panic will steal his rhythm, and rhythm is the only thing keeping him moving forward. At some point, the sky shifts. Still dark, but less absolute. A gray smear appears on the horizon. That's when he realizes he's been out here for hours. And then, finally, the island is close enough to show teeth. Cliffs, black lava rock, waves breaking white, slamming and pulling back. He aims for it anyway. His first contact with land isn't a beach, it's a wall. He reaches rocks, and a wave slaps him sideways. He tries to climb, but the next surge rips him off like he weighs nothing. For a split second, he thinks, I made it. Then the ocean answers back, not yet. He has to go back into the water just a few meters to move along the cliff and find the next place that he can climb. That return is brutal because the body hates re-entry. It's like stepping back into a freezer after you've tasted air. He swims with one arm, reaching out, fingers scraping a rock, searching for a break in the wall. His clothes are heavy, his legs feel dull, but the lighthouse is still there behind him. And the island is in front of him, and there is no third option. Finally, his hand finds a ledge, then another. He drags himself up, belly on a rock, coughing salt. When he finally gets knees on the rock, his skin doesn't feel cold anymore. It feels blank. He can't tell if his feet are on stone or air. He has to look down to place them. And even lying there, he knows the danger isn't over because his wet clothes in wind can steal the heat you have. He lies there for a few seconds, chest hammering because standing feels like asking for a miracle. Then he looks back at the sea. No other heads, no voices, just waves. If understanding survival like this is useful, you can subscribe if you'd like. When he finally gets his feet under him, he expects to feel triumphant. Instead, he feels confused. His body is still moving, but it doesn't feel like his body. His legs wobble like he's been spun around. His hands are claws. He tries to open them, and it takes effort, like prying a frozen hinge. The ground under him isn't sand. It's sharp lava rock, broken, uneven, like a field of black knives. He looks down and realizes his boots are gone. Somewhere in the ocean, in all that thrashing, they came off. Now he's barefoot. He takes one step, the rock bites. Not metaphorically, it cuts. He feels a slice across the bottom of his foot, and then another. Each step is a new cut, but the cold has changed the rules of pain. Pain arrives late. It's like hearing thunder after lightning. He can see the blood, dark and thin against the rock, but he doesn't feel the full burn yet. He's still soaked. His clothes cling to him. The wind hits his wet back and steals heat faster than the water did. That's the part people don't expect. People get out of the ocean. Getting out of the ocean doesn't mean you're safe. Wet clothes in cold wind can't finish the job. He needs shelter. He needs warmth. He needs another human. But he's on the wrong side of the island. There are no houses, no roads, no lights. Just dark lava fields and low hills. He picks a direction based off memory and guesswork. He knows there's a town somewhere, a place where boats come in and where people wake up early. He just needs to reach something that looks like civilization. Walking should be easy compared to swimming, except walking requires coordination, and coordination is exactly what the cold steals first. His steps are short. He tries to keep his balance. His knees don't fully trust him. Every few minutes, he has to stop and breathe, not because he's out of air, but because his muscles are confused about what they're supposed to do. He stumbles once and catches himself on his hands. The rock scrapes his palms. He feels grit under his fingernails. His fingers don't want to curl around anything. At one point, he sees a water trough, the kind used for animals. The surface is covered with ice, not slushy, a solid sheet close to an inch thick. He punches it. It hurts in a distant way. The ice cracks. He scoops water to his mouth. It tastes like metal and cold. It's not comfort, but it's something. He keeps walking. Time gets strange again. Not sea time, but land time. On land, you expect progress. On land, you expect landmarks. Here, the lava field looks like same in every direction, black and broken, with little ridges that trip your feet. The sky continues to lighten. A thin gray becomes pale morning. He can see his own breath now, fogging in front of his face. He can see the steam rising faintly off his clothes when the wind pauses. He keeps thinking, I should be collapsing. He keeps waiting for the moment where his legs stop. But they don't. That's the invisible variable in this story. Not courage, not destiny, something physical. Something in the way his body handled the cold that night. Because the normal pattern for cold water immersion isn't a long, steady fight. It's a quick decline. First, breathing chaos, then loss of hand function, then confusion, then unconsciousness. He moves past the point where charts say he should be past. And yet he's walking, bleeding, shivering. He's alive. He reached a road after what feels like hours. A real road, flat and familiar, and suddenly the world looks human again. He follows it until he sees buildings, then a house, then a window with light behind it. He knocks. Not politely, he hits the door with the side of his fist because his fingers can't form a proper knock. When someone opens, the warmth that spills out feels like a smell like bread and electricity. He tries to speak. His voice is thin. His lips don't move right. He gets words out anyway. Boat, men, ocean. The person stares at him like he's seen a ghost that forgot to be dead. Soon there are more people, a car, hands guiding him, blankets. Someone asks his name. He doesn't fully register it, but his mind keeps returning to one question, the same one that doctors will ask later. How did he stay conscious and moving for that long? Because by morning, what happened out there won't just be a survival story. It'll be a problem scientists want to solve. And before we name him, before we name the island, we want to understand the mechanism. Otherwise, it sounds like a myth. And it wasn't a myth. It was biology. Plus a few brutal decisions made in the dark. Now we can put names on the map. This happened in the night of March 11th, 1984, in the morning of March 12th. The fishing boat was the Hellisey VE-503. There were 5 men on board. The survivor was Guðlaugur Friðþórsson, known as Gulli. He was 22 years old. The sea temperature that night was reported around 5 to 6 degrees Celsius. In many cold water models, that kind of water predicts short survival windows, and swimming usually shortens them. 4 crewmates died, only Gulli reached land. So why didn't the usual shutdown sequence finish him? The first enemy was cold, shock. When icy water hits skin, especially the face, nerves fire like an alarm. Breathing can jump into a gasp, then fast, shallow panting. That's how people drown early. Not from cold, but from inhaling water. Gulli's first win was getting control of his breathing. Not calm in a heroic way, but more like a stubborn way. In through the nose when he could, out slow, keep the mouth closed when the waves hit. Then the body starts protecting the core. Blood vessels in the arms and legs narrow. Hands stiffen, fingers curl. It's why people can't clip buckles or hold lines. But it also slows heat loss through the skin because less warm blood is reaching the surface. Clothing helped a little. He wasn't in a suit, he was in work layers, a shirt, a sweater, and jeans. In water, that doesn't insulate the way a jacket does in air, but it can trap a thin layer of water against the skin. If you don't thrash, the layer warms slightly and you lose heat a bit slower. The biggest variable researchers pointed to later was body composition. Keating and colleagues published the case as an exceptional cold water survival outlier, partly because his condition after the rescue didn't match expectations. They discussed insulation. Gully carried more body fat than many swimmers do. Fat conducts heat poorly compared to water, so a thick layer slows deep cooling. But insulation alone doesn't move you 6 kilometers. Heat production mattered. Swimming makes heat, but it also increases convective cooling because moving scrubs cold water over you. The difference is pace. A steady, efficient stroke can keep heat production up without burning you up. A sprint can feel brave for 10 minutes. Then in the end, exhaustion in cold water is immediate failure. His life as a fisherman mattered here. Years of hauling nets and bracing against deck motion builds endurance that is less about speed and more about tolerating discomfort without panicking. Direction mattered too. In darkness, the lighthouse beam gave him a reference, something stable to correct toward. Without it, it's easy to swim in slow circles and waste minutes you don't have to. Then he reached the cliffs. Some accounts described him hitting a vertical wall and having to go back into the sea briefly to move along the rock and find a place to climb. That extra re-entry is brutal because the body hates a second cold shock when it's already strained. And after he climbed out, wind became the next thief. Wet clothes in cold air can drain heat fast. He kept moving anyway, walking around there 3 hours across lava fields to reach help. That movement did two things. It generated heat through shivering and muscle work, and it kept his blood pressure and breathing active enough to keep his brain online. So the mechanism is a stack of narrow margins: breathing control in the first minute, vessel constriction delaying heat loss, work clothes trapping a thin buffer, insulation buying time, steady pacing avoiding exhaustion, a lighthouse giving direction, and relentless movement after landfall. Not a miracle, a chain that didn't break. When he finally reached people, the body was still in conservation mode. Some retellings note doctors struggling to find a wrist pulse at first. That doesn't mean his heart stopped. It can mean the pulse out in the wrist is faint because circulation is being held deep. There's also a land trap called afterdrop. When you stop moving, blood vessels can open. Cold blood from arms and legs returns to the core. The core can keep cooling even after you're out of the water. That's why rescuers often keep people wrapped, handled gently, and laid flat, because a sudden stand can end in a faint. Gully had no rescue protocol. He had a road and a need to reach humans, so he kept walking, and every shiver was his body doing frantic push-ups on the inside, turning stored fuel into heat, just enough to keep his mind awake. By the time he reached a heated room, he'd been fighting cold for close to 9 hours total. There's a reason why this story stuck in Iceland. It wasn't just that one man lived. It was that the survival didn't behave the way people expect survival to behave. Most of us carry a simple story in our heads. Cold water equals fast death. You fall in, you're gone. If someone lives, we assume they were rescued quickly, or they had special gear, or the water wasn't really that cold. Gully broke that story. He made the water look negotiable. And that's dangerous if you learn the wrong lesson. The right lesson is tighter and honesty a little humbling. The body has multiple failure points. Cold doesn't kill you with one switch. It kills you through a sequence. Breathe first, then hands, then thinking, then consciousness. What saved him is that he didn't lose any of those points early enough for the chain to complete. You can hear the difference when you look at the other men. They didn't die because they lacked character. They died because cold water stacks problems fast. If you inhale water in the first minute, it doesn't matter what your insulation is. If your hands fail and you can't keep your airway safe, it doesn't matter how strong your legs are. One weak link and the whole system folds. Goalie's system held. Barely. The other twist is what people think endurance looks like. We picture endurance as pushing harder. In cold water, endurance is often the opposite. It's doing just enough consistently without triggering panic, without burning your fuel too fast. That's why the story became interesting to researchers. Keating and colleagues published an account in the British Medical Journal calling it an exceptional case of survival in cold water because the survival time and the observed condition didn't match standard expectations. It wasn't written up to create a legend. It was written up because the legend has a body, and the body didn't fit the model. If you want the meaning beyond the sea, it's this. We're terrible at judging what's possible when we only look at the variable. People heard 5 degrees and assumed the store was decided. But the outcome wasn't decided by temperature alone. It was decided by a stack of small advantages and choices, each one buying minutes. And minutes in that water are the currency of life. The lighthouse beam is still the image I can't shake. A steady light sweeping across black water over and over, while one man kept moving in place that doesn't forgive mistakes. Not because the sea got softer, but because he found a rhythm that kept his mind working. Years later, this story was retold in interviews and even dramatized in the Icelandic film, The Deep, because people needed a way to picture something that felt too extreme to be real. But the real version is quieter. A young fisherman alone, counting strokes between lighthouse passes, choosing steady over heroic. What makes this story land is that it doesn't reward the simple moral. It doesn't say, be tough and you'll live. It says, the body is a system and systems fail in order. Cold water doesn't kill you with one cause. It stacks problems. Breathing chaos can drown you in the first 60 seconds. Hand failure can drown you in the next 10 minutes. Confusion can drown you later because you stop making good choices. And unconsciousness ends it. Gully stayed alive because he stayed ahead of that stack. He controlled the first gasp. He kept his airway safe. He kept his arms working long enough. He paced the effort so he didn't exhaust himself into sinking. He used the lighthouse as a reference so his 6-kilometer swim was actually in a line, not in a slow circle. Then on land, he didn't treat reaching shore as the finish. He kept moving through the wind and sharp lava rock because stopping would have let after-drop and cooling finish the job and finish him off. There's another story on this channel where survival hinged on a different overlooked factor. It's linked here if you want to continue. I hope you like this story about survival, and we have many more here in Impostory.